One. Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, co-editor-in-chief of Retail Insider. Joining me today is retail analyst Bruce Winder, and we're going to be talking about Canadian Tire, Bruce. And recently, the mega retailer in Canada announced a new growth strategy, $2 billion True North growth strategy. Tell me a little bit about why you think at this time, they announced that and what's driving that strategy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mario. Yeah, it was an interesting announcement recently with the True North strategy. They signaled that their Better Connected strategy was coming to a close. That was their sort of previous strategy where they wanted to get online and perfect some of the digital operations within the chain. And I think Canadian Tire has had a bit of a tough time recently. I mean, they had a really good year sort of during after the pandemic, but since then they faced some headwinds. There's more competition now. Consumers are having a real hard time buying discretionary items, and Canadian Tire sells a mix of essential and discretionary items. So there's a few headwinds. The way automobiles are bought and sold is different now. The type of automobiles are less people in the future going to have an automobile. You look at home ownership. There might be less people owning a home in the future and more people owning condos. So I just think the world has changed a lot on Canadian Tire, and they've kept up, but it requires sort of, I think, sharpening their pencil a bit more with this new True North strategy.
Now, part of that strategy is the closure of 17 standalone atmosphere stores, but I think 14 of them are being co-located within Sport Check. First of all, can you talk just a little bit about that? First, the closure of the standalone stores. What do you think is behind that?
Yeah, it's probably just a pure dollars and cents play. If you look at Atmosphere, retailers do that. They'll take a brand and they'll spin it off and have their own stores. But sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So, I credit Canadian Tire with making a decision and divesting from it. They can use that capital and that OpEx in better areas to serve their customers and serve their shareholders. So, good decision making on them. Hey, if it doesn't work, you've tried it. No use trying to, continue on with something that's a lost cause. Just get rid of it and find a way to serve your customers differently.
And yet, as I said, the brand still exists and remains or will remain alive within Sport Checks.
Sure.
See a lot of companies doing that.
It happens sometimes. There's a lot of store within stores, brands within other stores. It's a way that is, allows companies to take advantage of their current footprints and have something interesting and delighting for their consumers and share the cost among a few different brands versus just one brand shouldering, the whole expense for that outlet. So yeah, it's a pretty popular strategy.
Okay, and the other one of the other main initiatives in their growth strategy is they talked about expanding the Triangle Rewards system. This is becoming increasingly more popular or more important as well in the retail sector, isn't it?
It is. I mean, loyalty is very important. It's really sort of the battleground for retailers now. Tire has done a good job taking their original Canadian Tire money and turning that into a loyalty program decades ago. And then they've built Triangle. And, it's no secret that they sell a lot more merchandise and make a lot more money off their core Triangle customer. So I think what they're trying to do, and this is part of another sort of centralized strategy as well, Mario, where from what I understand, they're trying to take the Marks brand, the Sport Check brand, and the Canadian Tire brand and consolidate them into one operating company. So I think they're trying to think in a more integrated way. Sometimes when you have different banners, you have silos, right? The silos don't talk to each other. They don't work together. The customer feels a little disjointed. When you put everything under one roof and you have the same teams managing all the brands, you can really try to eliminate that, right? So I think there's opportunity. The other thing they mentioned was the use of AI and first party data. So they're sitting on a ton of first party data from their credit card and from their website and all kinds of other things. And they've embraced AI. They started off with a sort of externally a CT app, but internally they're using AI, I'm sure, to try to have more customized offers for the consumer, put offers in front of the consumer that are more timely for their lifestyle. So it sounds like a good direction overall.
Yeah, as a consumer, I know that I know that going online and looking up a product and seeing that a certain store has 18 items on the shelf is it's quite handy for consumers these days, isn't it? The use of technology like that.
It is for folks of our vintage, it's a very different time. For the youngsters, they were born with, smartphones in their hands, right? But for some people, it's quite a shock in terms of how technology has changed, but it's really enabled retail. It's really made retail easier for the consumer if done correctly, where you can do a lot more now with your mobile phone and, you can go and experience the store. So it can be a very exciting in-store experience, overall customer experience if it's done with little friction, and that's what Tire, I think, was working on the last few years with their better connected strategy. And now they're sort of in the next phase where they need to find some operational synergies to save cost, frankly. There's an opportunity to reduce redundant headcount, reduce redundant systems, get some cost synergies with vendors, but also some sales and marketing and customer synergies by having everyone sort of work together to serve that, one or two customer group that they target.
The last thing I wanted to ask you, Bruce, is that, and I believe it was last month, Canadian Tire made a big announcement that they had agreed to sell Helly Hansen. How does that
Mhm.
play into all this? That about a month later, they announced a growth strategy.
Yeah, it's a great point. I never really understood why they bought Helly Hansen. They're a retailer, not a manufacturer, but they did. And to their credit, they grew the business and they were able to sell it for almost 1.3 billion Canadian. So that's good. That gives them a war chest, right? That gives them some money to, they're going to pay down debt to the tune of about $200 million. They're going to give some buybacks to shareholders to the tune of about 400 million. That'll keep shareholders happy while they work through this transition because it's going to be a transition, right? And it gives them a little bit of a war chest that they can use to spend on some of these capital initiatives and a bit of a buffer, just in case they need to do some things based on potential trade wars and things of that nature. So I think they're sitting in a pretty good position.
All right, son. Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Bruce, for joining us today.
Thanks, Mario. Have a great day.
Great. That was retail analyst Bruce Winder. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, co-editor in chief of Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.